Well, Indonesia has set a growth target of 5.3% next year as the economy continues to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic.
What is Indonesia's main source of income? The nation of a significant exporter of natural gas and crude oil, Indonesia also produces a broad variety of other goods, including sugar, tea, tobacco, copra, and spices, such as cloves, and is one of the major producers of rubber, coffee, cocoa, and palm oil in the world. Indonesia has the largest economy in Southeast Asia and is home to more than 300 different ethnic groups. Since emerging from the Asian financial crisis of the late 1990s, Indonesia's economy has experienced significant growth. In terms of purchasing power parity, Indonesia has the 4th highest population in the world and the 10th largest economy overall. Additionally, Indonesia has made significant progress in reducing poverty, with the country's poverty rate falling from over 50% in 1999 to under 10% in 2019, just before the COVID-19 pandemic struck. Assuming the G20 presidency this year, Indonesia urged other nations to cooperate in order to build a stronger and more long-lasting recovery from the pandemic's effects. The 20-year development plan for Indonesia's economy runs from 2005 to 2025. The RPJMN Rangka Pemajuan Jangka Mengat Nasional is divided into 5 5-year medium-term development plans, each with a particular development priority. The final stage of the 20-year plan is a present medium-term development plan. By boosting the nation's human capital and competitiveness in the international market, it seeks to further enhance Indonesia's economy. As a result of the pandemic's effects on its economy, Indonesia's classification as an upper middle-income country changed to a lower middle-income category as of July 2021. A record low 9.2% rate of poverty in September 2019 was partially reversed by the pandemic, rising to 9.7% in September 2021. Indonesia's GDP is expected to expand by 5.1% in 2022, as the nation's economy is currently in recovery and is backed by rising commodity exports and a flexible fiscal strategy to deal with the pandemic. However, the recovery could be hampered by more difficult global conditions and COVID-19's lasting impacts. The stunning rate in Indonesia was successfully reduced from 37% in 2013 to under 2.5% in 2021. To ensure the development of strong and productive human capital, more work must be done. According to the World Bank's Human Capital Index, the future generation of Indonesians will suffer consequences from the lack of education brought on by the closure of schools during the COVID-19 pandemic. The World Bank is aiding Indonesia's emergency response to the COVID-19, which includes bolstering pandemic emergency response measures, supporting the government's free vaccination program, enhancing social assistance and healthcare systems, and taking steps to increase the financial sector's resilience. Climate change is projected to have an impact on Indonesia's ability to access water, health and nutrition, disaster risk, education and urban growth, especially in coastal areas, with implications for inequality and poverty. The world's largest tropical peatlands, 14.9 million hectares mangrove forest, 3.31 million hectares, and the 3rd largest tropical rainforest in terms of area are all found in Indonesia. Huge amounts of carbon are stored in these natural resources, which help to lessen the effects of climate change and support Indonesia's long-term growth. In order to achieve effective climate action in the areas of land use, oceans and energy, as well as by mobilizing climate finance, the World Bank supports Indonesia's climate mitigation and adaptation initiatives. Support for the government's National Mangrove Program and the design and implementation of carbon pricing tools are among the World Bank's operations, which are important to raising funding for climate action. Large estates produce the majority of commodities. Numerous large-scale initiatives that significantly boosted general deployments for finances were born from widespread exploration for oil and other mineral reserves. Since the early 1970s, Indonesia has continued to be a significant importer of high-tech products, manufactured goods, and technical skills. Nevertheless, the country's economic foundation has transitioned from the primary sector to secondary and tertiary industries, including manufacturing, trade, and services. Early in the 1990s, manufacturing overtook agriculture as the largest single contributor, gross domestic product (GDP), and has remained so ever since. However, a sizable percentage of the national budget has continued to be earmarked for agriculture. As a result, the nation has continued to produce enough rice on its own since the middle of the 1980s. The same kinds of crops may be produced all across Indonesia due to the country's continuous monsoon environment and nearly equal distribution of rainfall. However, only around 1/5 of the entire land area is used for crop cultivation. The majority of agricultural land is used for rice or other cash crops. Rice is grown extensively in Java's northern coastal plains and central plains, while tobacco and coffee are also grown on plantains. Salmal lands and drier region of eastern Java are dominated by crops including corn, maize, cassava, sweet potatoes, peanuts, groundnuts, and soybeans. Indonesia is home to a wide range of mineral reserves, many of which are unexplored. 1/10 of the nation's GDP is made up of mining, which also includes the extraction of oil and natural gas. Through exports and taxes, mining significantly boosts the nation's deployment and revenues from foreign exchange. However, only a few small portion of the workforce is employed by the mining industry. Coal, natural gas, and other fossil fuels are a significant source of income. The Java and South China Seas, as well as offshore locations, are where they are largely produced, along with Sumatra and Kalimantan. Foreign oil businesses operate on a production-sharing model, despite the fact that Pertama, a government-owned petroleum company, has controlled refinery production since 1968. The rupiah, the country's currency, is issued by Bank Indonesia, the central bank, the state savings bank, banks that focus on rural and industrial development, and a sizable commercial bank with international offices services are some other significant government-owned organizations. Each bank has a wide range of assets and runs separately in Indonesia. Both private domestic banks and foreign banks are active. Financial institutions that are not banks are prohibited. Jakarta and Surabaya both house stock exchanges for Indonesia. Generally speaking, the objectives of government credit and fiscal policy have been to create the framework for private motivation within the framework of financial orthodoxy. Prior to the 1980s, the state-run banking system was the only source of capital in Indonesia. For many decades, if not centuries, Indonesia has had a complex and moderately well-developed commercial sector focused on the marketing and export of agricultural products, as well as the provision of consumer goods and services to the domestic market. Chinese Indonesians have historically dominated trade, although other groups of the population, particularly those from Western Sumatra and Southern Celebes, have also made significant contributions. More than 1/3 of the GDP in Indonesia is produced by the country's service sector. Even though the industry's expansion was hampered by the Asian economic crisis in 1997 to 1998, many terrorist incidents, and the emergence of avian influenza or bird flu in the early 21st century, tourism has emerged as a significant source of income. Industrialization in Indonesia has not resulted in a strong organized labor movement. Because there is a labor shortage on the job market and because the majority of lower-class Indonesians work in traditional, informal, and marginal jobs, this is partly to blame. Politically, motivated worker associations were prohibited by political repression under the Suharto administration, 1967 to 1988. Instead, a quasi-governmental political party was sought after by the government in order to include functional groupings like farmers and fishermen's associates. Due to its location as an island nation, Indonesia relies heavily on maritime transport to carry agricultural and raw goods from farms to markets. Despite Indonesia's favourable physical conditions for the establishment of strong maritime linkages for freight and strong air links for passengers, many regions of the country have not yet received adequate transportation services, which has severely impeded economic growth. On Indonesia's island, particularly the smaller ones like Java, Bali, and Madura, road transportation dominates. 3/5 of the country's roads are paved, and the majority of them are on Indonesian islands of Sumatra, Java, and Bali, where the network of motorways provides for most traffic needs. Madura, Lombok, and Celebes make up the majority of the remaining paved miles. Although there are some good roads in western and central Kalimantan, road development in Papua has not been uniform due to the size of the country and financial restrictions on the government. As roads have improved and more people own cars and motorcycles, there has been an increase in traffic. The majority of the major population centres are located near the water, making it possible for coastal and inter-island maritime services to connect and serve them. Because Indonesia is outside the typhoon and strong wind belt, the nearby seas are often calm. Even in cases where docking facilities are not available, ships can be typically anchor, discharge from lighters, and load from other vessels. In general, both low and middle income Indonesians cannot afford the high cost of specialist medical care offered by private hospitals and physicians. That's all for today. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. Also, express your valuable thoughts in the comment section below. Until then, bye. Also, spend some time watching other videos on the channel.